Prime Minister Hsien says ASEAN must stay firm on excluding Myanmar from the group's meetings at a political level. And despite Myanmar making no progress on peace, talks must continue with all parties involved in the conflict. Safabari Ismail with this report.
A small, sleepy fishing town in the island of Flores in eastern Indonesia. Labuan Bajo has been awakened by a flurry of activities this week. Labuan Bajo was chosen as the venue for the ASEAN summit because of its charm and tranquility. Indonesia, as the current chair of ASEAN, wants to tell the world about Labuan Bajo. It is one of the 10 new Balis that Indonesia wants to develop to invigorate its tourism industry. It's against this peaceful backdrop that ASEAN leaders discussed serious regional issues such as the political crisis in Myanmar. The Myanmar military leaders have been banned from ASEAN meetings since 2021 for failing to act on the 5-point consensus peace plan. Singapore Prime Minister Loong said the ban has a purpose.
There's no reason to change this format because no progress has been made. If we now say, well, all right, we forget it and just carry on and go back to business as usual, what have we achieved except to demonstrate that we have not made any progress and that we are now carrying on as if nothing is wrong, which I think is not the right thing to do.
Mr. Lee says implementing the peace plan will be a difficult and a lengthy process. The plan includes an immediate end to violence, holding talks among all parties and allowing humanitarian aid. ASEAN leaders discussed if the peace plan should be reviewed.
I think we can review them, but I'm not sure which one we would like not to have. They all make sense. They are not time-bound. If these basic requirements are not met, I think it's very difficult to imagine that you have a solution.
Mr. Lee also called for a united ASEAN amid a troubled global environment.
The more troubled the world is, the more you need a safety life raft. And ASEAN is our life raft, it's the life raft for all the ASEAN members. So in a troubled world, we need ASEAN to be unified, to be cohesive, to be effective, to be central. If you're not all of the above, you will not be central.
ASEAN leaders also are committed to the roadmap for the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, or AOIP. It was mooted by Indonesia to bring major regional powers together to discuss peace and prosperity through cooperation and development. Mr. Lee said the AOIP is an inclusive, omnidirectional idea.
They will have contradictions, we know, but hopefully by having ASEAN work with all of them, that generate some common ground amongst them, and that will put ASEAN in a position to be at the center of regional affairs, and that will enable ASEAN to help contribute to a balance of power in the region, and therefore enable ASEAN centrality to work.
For the first time, Timor-Leste attended the ASEAN summit as an observer. The country had earlier received in-principle approval for full participation in the group in future.
If you ask the member countries of ASEAN, would you like to have Timor-Leste in? Everybody would say yes. Do we think Timor-Leste is ready to come in yet? Well, we think that will take some time. For example, on the economic agreements as well, there are something like 66 ASEAN agreements, and it will take a while for Timor-Leste to accede to all of them. And I think it's important that Timor-Leste complete all this process so that by the time it joins ASEAN, it's really truly an ASEAN member and not just a half member or a member in waiting.
Mr. Lee noted it's hard work to have 10 countries in ASEAN work together and one more waiting to join. He said it's never easy to reach a consensus, but it's work which must be done. Safabari Ismail, Hsien, Labuan Bajo.